Hello.
Well, welcome to Andertons TV. And this is the wonderful Rabea Masad. And in some bizarre, weird...
No idea how this has happened.
No idea. Like in the 57 years that we've been making videos on this channel, apparently this is the first actual gear review that Rabea and I have done together.
It is. I don't know how that's happened, genuinely.
Neither do I.
But it's nice. It feels nice.
I agree. So,
good.
thank you very much. It's lovely to see you.
Yeah, you too.
Thank you for tuning in, everybody, because today we're going to talk about synergy amps. Synergy, it's a word. It means when things meld together in a good way, when things have synergy. Now,
you've got a bit more knowledge on the history of synergy than I do.
Yeah, I like this because I probably know a bit about the history, but you know more about the workings. So,
okay, cool.
Back almost when I was in short trousers, to be honest with you, there was a chap called Bruce Egnater, a really lovely guy who spent, probably as long as anybody designing and making guitar amps. And he came up with this concept of a modular valve amp system. So that this idea that you'd have these valve preamp modules, and they would fit into some sort of a rack or an amp or whatever, and you could mix and match the modules so that you could have, like 10 different amp sounds or whatever. And he then licensed that technology to Randall, and that's when I first saw it. And we must be talking 20 years ago, 15 years ago.
Back when Pantera was still going, maybe. Because that's the only reason I know of Randall anyway.
Probably just after, actually. I would say maybe Damage Plan era,
oh, okay.
But you might be right. And then...
I like that you knew who Damage Plan were.
I went to see Damage Plan live. Yeah.
If anyone else is surprised, please comment below.
Yeah, I know. It's like that's my one and only time of seeing Dimebag.
As if you got to see Dimebag.
I got invited to... I didn't meet Dimebag, but I went to see them in London. Relatively small gig. I want to say the Astoria or something like that. And he did this... It was all true. He had his four stacks of 4x12, so like 8 4x12s in total.
Just super loud.
And a shot glass lined up all the way along the top. So, I mean, you must be talking like 60 shot glasses across the top.
Man, for the whole gig.
Which we assume have Jack Daniels in them. And yeah, he would neck them. And then they gave him the sort of like in the middle of the gig, it's like the rest of the band walk off and Dimebag just spends 5 minutes. And I was a bit like, because I'm not really into that genre of music, but it's like, as a player, you just sit there with your jaw on the floor going,
yeah,
he was another level. Another sad loss to the guitar community. Anyway. More recently, a collective in America called Boutique Amps have put together this group of builders, kind of, I think, probably headed up more by Dave Friedman, of Friedman Amps, but you've got people like Brian Wampler, you've got Mike Soldano, Bruce Egnater,
Joe Morgan, I think, as well.
Joe Morgan, yeah. So,
Diezel, yeah.
Absolutely. Some heavyweight guitar amp builders. And they've kind of engineered and completely sort of nailed this modular thing under the Synergy brand. And basically, that's where my knowledge runs out. So I don't know. I don't know anything. That, I guess the big difference in the past, all of the modules were like just unlicensed copies of other amplifiers. So it would be Bruce's vibe of what a Friedman was, or what a Morgan was, or whatever. And I guess the difference now is it is an official. Friedman module, an official Morgan module, an official...
Which I think is great, because it means that the amp builders in question have total control over the sound of their modules, as opposed to before. There's a tube in there, though. A couple of tubes.
Two ECC 83s,
nice.
Or 12 AX7s, depending on which side of the Atlantic you live. But so that's really all I know. So what can you fill us in on?
Well, as far as I know...
Stuff.
We said earlier these look kind of Friedman-y, and I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that Dave Friedman oversees the head. So they do a bunch of different things. So you've got like the SYN1, which houses just one of these preamps in like a little desktop module, and then they go up in size. So we got the SYN30 and the SYN50, and the thing with these are they're valve power section 6L6. 12AX7 preamp.
So the desktop thing has no power amp in it, right?
It's kind of like what Victory do with their V4 preamps.
Yeah.
So you plug the module in, and then you can put it into the loop of another amp, and it has cab sim, and it has power sagging, and
I see.
stuff like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so anyway, then we've got like the valve amp versions. So they've got 6L6 tubes in. This is 50 watts, that's 30 watts. And the idea being that you essentially plug your modules in. Almost like if any of you know the Lunchbox 500 series stuff in like a Pro Studio, you'll get these little Neve preamps you can slot in and create your own kind of super mixing console. Same idea. And they're actually really easy to get in and out, which Lee's finally demonstrating for us right now.
Was talking, I thought, let's just see how easy it is to...
Let's have a fiddle. There you go. Yeah, and you just, slots in like a little old game cartridge.
Doesn't it?
Reminds me a little bit of an old SNES.
Do you remember when games cartridges were that big?
Yeah.
Yeah, you have in the top.
Yeah, believe it or not, I am old enough to remember that.
Goodness me. I still think that's quite cutting edge, to be honest with you. That's how old I am.
Yeah. But yeah, the other thing is like the cool thing with the heads are they're MIDI programmable. You can fully rig this up with any kind of switcher that you use. They have effects loops in them. They have line outs with cab simulation on them. So they've got all the bells and whistles. And they look really nice too. And most importantly, they sound great. And the cool thing is that if you're not keen on one sound, you can change it if you want.
So would it be fair to say it's a bit of an, I think typically when you talk about customers, you've got very traditional valve amp customers that just want they're really happy with a single channel amplifier and a couple of pedals and off they go. And then you've got the Kemper guys and that, who want a unit that they can program to be like 50 different guitar amplifiers.
Yeah.
And this kind of almost is like
somewhere in the middle.
Somewhere in the middle, isn't it? It's like it's you like the idea of having maybe 20 different guitar amplifiers, but you want the tone and the simplicity of a regular valve amplifier. And
yeah, I think that's cool. I think, like we were saying earlier, the fact that the modules themselves are like sort of 350 quid or something, and let's say you get the SYN50 here, and you're like really happy with your clean, you decide you want a different tone of distortion. You just try a different module.
Can we hear some? Why don't we just do a segment then where we take 5 or 6 different modules and we just go, how do they sound? And you can play and have a little bit of noodle around. What did you have in that opening jam?
I've rigged up. I've got this as my sort of clean and crunch. I've got the Friedman Dirty Shirley. So I think it's pretty much the same sort of channel both sides. And then for my crunch or higher crunch and distortion, I used the Soldano SLO module.
Right.
So,
and is your amp the same, that the actual core amp chassis itself has one preamp in it, and then the module adds another two channels?
Essentially, I think the way they do it is you get X number of preamp tubes in the head, and then they make up the rest with the modules you insert.
So yours would be a 5-channel amp now. You've got the channel from the amp, 2 channels on the Dirty Shirley and 2 channels on the SLO?
So on the SYN30, you get a channel in it.
Right.
With this, you don't.
Oh, okay. So essentially, right, I see. So yours is 4. That's why yours is a 4-button foot switch, isn't it? So you've only got the channels in the modules, whereas in the 30, I see I've got a channel in the actual amp plus the 2 channels.
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah,
having
I like
the
that.
clean in the amp. I think this is more if you really want to tailor make each module and preamp to do something specific, whereas that is like.
Did you say it was MIDI as well?
It has MIDI programmability, yeah.
Wow.
Absolutely.
But that's obviously just down to which channel do you want rather than
you can rig your switcher up
settings or something.
Yeah,
like
you can't save settings, but because these foot switches are, they got 7-pin DIN on it or something.
That's cool, man. Okay, sorry, let's have a little listen then over what gives a couple of your clean tones from the Dirty Shirley then.
All right. So that's like
Mick Rabea Taylor there.
Oh yeah, with a little. Yeah, he actually showed me that little.
Oh, excellent.
That's Pete now. But yeah, so that I've kind of set it up like what I noticed is the module has more gain than the amp, is what I noticed.
Right.
We were using
more gain than the Dirty Shirley amp. Yeah.
So I've kind of set it up where I've got a little bit of gain on the first, and then you can either use the foot switch or click the little channel, and now we've got what I would consider to be my crunch. Which sounds Really nice. And then if you add a bit of compression. And then you could even throw a little bit of a boost in front. It sounds really good. Like, I really, really like that. That's kind of my British channel.
For sure.
And then you want to go over, get a bit silly, you go over to the SLO, and this is my kind of SLO low gain.
Oh, mother!
And then when you give it the SLO channel,
Did anyone, has a really heavy band used SLO?
What's his name?
Because I think of Eric Clapton and Gary Moore when I think of Soldano.
I'm trying to think of the name of the guy. His name's Matt. We did a sound like of him, and it's like a huge sludgy doom band that use SLOs.
Really?
And I can't remember the name. If you're watching, probably remember which one it was. But anyway,
it's Prince as well. It's such a gainy kind of amplifier, and I suppose with Gary Moore you go okay, but I was really surprised. All my favourite Eric Clapton albums, Journeyman and August and all that kind of period was
with the he had a stereo SLO, didn't he?
Big too. I think like big sort of Mike Bradshaw switching rigs and all that kind of stuff. But it's quite a that sound for Clapton at that time was probably not, it was very
it's not what you'd
associate, wasn't it? It wasn't like Blues Breakers and Les Pauls or anything like that.
I mean, when Gary Moore used them, he had that. Wasn't that when he had that like 20-minute long sustained note? He was on the SLO. Yeah. So I mean, and I learned recently that the SLO was like the godfather of these high gain cascading gain amplifiers. Like that's what 5150 was based on, and Mesa Dual Rec and all the. I had no idea, and you can hear it like it's a.
I'd love to. We met Mike
sound.
For about 10 minutes at the NAMM show this year. Really, really lovely guy. But I'd really love to know what his, because it was like he was massive at the sort of 80s, and then I don't know, just sort of like. Never really went anywhere, or sort of I don't know, until he became part of this boutique amp collective.
Bootang.
That's a way better name. I'm gonna
Bootang.
Abby, if you're watching, you can have that one. Bootang Amp Distribution. That's the one. Is it probably easier whilst you change those? I'll just whiz over. So one of the other differences on the 30 watt head versus the 50 is I don't have a master volume, so I just have a volume for preamp. The internal channel, and then the 2 volumes on the actual module. Kind of quite interesting, really. And I would think before you make a decision about which one is best for you, don't just assume this is the 30 watt one and that's the 50 watt one. There's, as well as the additional module, there are other features. So just do that research. And actually, again, if you don't need the actual amplifier as such, again, look at either the desktop or the rack mount. There are unpowered versions of both of these products. Anyway, let's have a go. This is just the amp on its own. So just a kind of a very fat, bass heavy, clean tone, isn't it?
Sounds like it's got a lot of headroom though.
Yeah, and very pleasant to listen to. Anyway, if we whiz over to the AC channel, I've got a blue channel and where's the button? Oh, I see, I still use the same button, and a red channel. So on the blue channel, with the gain about 10 or 11 o'clock and all the tone pretty flat apart from the bass end, which is boosted up a bit.
That's punchy.
Oh,
yeah,
it's very
weighty.
I
Is it
like
an open back cab?
Say again?
It's an open back cab as well.
I like the way that Vox amplifiers, and you know, obviously a lot of the AC stuff that Joe Morgan designed was inspired by that. I like the fact that the bass end is quite compressed and rounded, drives a bit more than
warm.
a Fender. Yeah.
It's great.
That sounds good, doesn't it? I mean, that's on my position 4. That's position 1. And then if we gain it up a smidgen, so now the gain is, we'll go like halfway. Really classic rock band stuff, isn't it? You know, just the right amount of gain for a rhythm guitar kind of. Bryan Adams all day long.
Yeah, it is. Love that. Love that.
Even with one module, if you pick the right module you have a couple of pedals, that's just a proper little gigging amplifier. And any of these
plenty of volume.
kind of anything that you buy from Friedman or Morgan or whatever, if it's got 30 watts and it's got valves in it, you're gigging all day long.
Yeah, it'll be deafening. Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah.
I like it. What's the idea of the silent mode on the standby switch?
If you want to do silent recording, you're using the line outs.
Right, so we've also got, we should probably at the end of the demo then just throw a line out into the DI and just go, here's what it sounds like. Here's the cab sim. Okay, and that's their own proprietary cab sim. It's not
as far as I know, it's just their cab model that they put on there.
Just analog cab simulated output. Well, we'll definitely give that a try at the end as well. Anyway, look, Rabea, whilst I was filling in there, fluffing essentially, has loaded 2 new modules up.
It's looking a bit more Larry now, as you can see. And it's definitely, you know, everything about the Steve Vai module is different. The knobs have changed.
Yeah, that was the big one for me. When Carvin kind of stopped making amplifiers last year, the big news was like, so who is Steve Vai going to go to? And I can tell you now, because I spoke to Steve, like this, me and Steve. We had Steve over for a clinic, and I asked him off the record, what are you going to do? And he was like, every single amp brand there has contacted me. Obviously. And it's like no surprise there. Yeah. So fair enough. If he's chosen to go with Synergy, then high praise indeed.
Yeah, I'm hoping that you just play and it sounds like Steve Vai. That would be great.
Built-in Steve Vai licks.
Right, so this is all set to 0 currently. First channel, we've got the Diezel VH4 module, which is, as far as I know, an absolute behemoth when it comes to...
I didn't even know Vin Diesel played the guitar. He learns something new every single day on this channel.
Not only does he have the guns, but he's got the licks too.
Has The Rock done a module with them?
The Dwayne?
Yeah.
I've no idea.
He should.
Okay, so we're going in with more gain straight off the bat. So this is the VH4. That sounds great. That's everything at 12 o'clock, gain and voltage, just everything at 12 o'clock.
Yeah.
It sounds like that. So that's wicked. So yeah, everything at 12, and then I've done the same on the second channel, so if we switch over, I'm just assuming it's more gain. That's sick. Yeah, that sounds really good. Okay, first impressions, loving it. And then, okay, so now let's get a bit of Steve.
Let's do it. Passion and Warfare all the way.
Oh yeah. Okay. So we got a bunch of toggle switches on here.
Oh yeah.
Looks like we've got bright and fat on and then bright and bright.
Oh no, it says boost and bright.
Oh, does it?
It says boost and bright.
I need glasses.
Yes, that's, you know what, you've gone blind. Too much. That's the problem.
So, just a quick check out of this. The toggle switches here, when you push them down, that's when they're engaged, which is
awesome.
Counterintuitive to me, but you know. I don't know, man. Because look, to turn it off, you go down.
Honestly, do you know what but that's nothing compared to the fact that pedal boards plug in on the right and come out on the left. Like the only thing in the universe where the signal chain goes back to front to go forward. Anyway.
Wow.
Now, you think about that over your cornflakes and mess the rest of your day up.
Back on track. So yeah, we've got so this is like the clean channel, and I've got the switches both fat and bright in.
Just that's with the brightness switch in.
Yeah.
It's still quite dark, isn't it? It's quite sort of...
I mean, let me just put everything at 12 just to be...
I don't really know. When I think of
100%.
Steve Vai clean sounds, I only really hear stuff with tons of effects on it. I can't really think of, like, you know, is there a Steve Vai clean sound that sounds like he's just plugged into like a Fender Deluxe and then that's it?
I don't know. To be honest, like for me, it was that thing where it was like, with Metallica and Megadeth, it was like Satch and Vai. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I was well into Satch, so I don't know loads of Steve Vai, but I kind of... So it's a clean channel, I mean, you know, that's how it sounds.
It's a clean channel with a clean sound.
Yeah.
What do you know?
Believe it or not. I mean, you can dirty up a little bit if you just boost the gain. We'll take the fat switch out, so... Yeah, that's...
Yeah, I like it.
It sounds good. And then if we go to...
Dirty.
The channel, let me just try and get this out. So we got the boost... Oh no, okay, this is confusing. On the gain channel, to activate things, you push them up instead of down. Who'd have thought? You know?
Who'd have thought?
Yeah. Anyway, so what we got?
It's got the sustain there.
It does, yeah.
It still sounds dark to me.
Yeah.
It's like the whole thing is sort of darker than I think that Steve Vai tone is.
Just to be totally sure.
I wonder if the gem is.
So that's definitely a boost. Yeah. So so. You know what it reminds me of? Victory amps. It's got that vibe about it.
You know what I think one of the video demos there absolutely is to do with this Synergy amp thing is, do any of them actually sound that different? Like, does an SLO and a Diezel and a Brown Eye, you know, how different do they actually sound? I think they're probably all very much in the same ballpark.
Yeah.
And then there's just almost like, you know, that final 5% or 10% will be like, oh, what suits your style
Yeah,
the
like
most.
I noticed the VH4 and the SLO are quite similar, although the VH4 is a little less compressed.
Right.
It's got less of that classic heavy metal sound to it. Now we go back to it, yeah. Yeah, it sounds so good. Well, yeah,
Let's do 2 more modules.
So we've swapped over our preamps now. We got, what is this one called? The
Metropolis.
Metropoulos.
I'm convinced that that's the there's a Metropoulos, I'm sure it's like a Greek a guy that makes Marshall clone kind of amps.
Okay, so
I'm
that's
sure that's
kind of
probably
what it's
a take on his.
vibed on. You got gain, volume, and 3-band EQ, 2 channels. So we'll start with the first channel. That's great.
Yes, it is.
All right, channel 2.
Bit thicker.
Yeah, you got a bit more girth.
A little bit girth.
So we can boost the gain though, right? So then you got like... If you put a boost in... I mean, you could hold that for ages.
There's a lot of stank in this room.
Literally.
Yeah, literally, it is.
And then we got the hairy brown eye from Friedman.
Of course.
So here we go.
It's quite nice to hear something slightly less gainy, isn't it? Out of the, not what I was expecting.
So if I put the gain at halfway, I try and always do things at halfway, see how it sounds, but... It feels great. That's a great feeling preamp. And then the red channel, the hairiest.
The hairy bit.
Yeah. Yeah, it all feels really good. It does. They all feel great. They're the right amount of compression under your fingers and all that. So
yeah, I think somehow. So we'll sort of overview what we like and dislike about this kind of thing. And I think it's kind of that there needs to be some sort of resource somewhere. Maybe the Synergy channel needs to do this, the Synergy website. There needs to be a way for you to go and audition each preamp. Because I think our first kind of criticism, I suppose, was that a lot of these preamps, the higher gain stuffs, just sound really similar.
Yeah.
And I think you'd be quite gutted if you bought 2 preamps potentially and plugged them in and then realised that you had 2 channels
pretty
that
much
were like
the same
thing.
Yeah.
So I would be slightly cautious of that.
I guess you'd find the flavour of the high gain that you like. So if you're more Diezel or or SLO, you'd just choose that and just that's your high gain, rather than trying to collect them all. Unless you wanted to, of course.
I mean, I think the concept, I do like this concept of, it's a pretty big outlay to buy the first bit. So this just the head with no modules is $1,200 for this. And $1,700, I think, for the 2-slot one.
Right.
So by the time you've loaded that up with 2 modules, you're into like £2,400 plus the cab. So we're not, that to me at that point goes, God, that's quite expensive, isn't it? For what is essentially just be a 4-channel amp, wouldn't it? But where I kind of think it becomes like better value is by the time you've got your 6th or your 7th module, now you've spent maybe 33,000 or 3,500 over, so still a lot of money. But you have at least got 7 amps now, as opposed to you're not having to go out and spend that £1,500, £2,000 every time you want to buy a new amplifier. So I sort of get that.
I feel like they did this. I feel like they did the heads to cater for people that like the valve amp head thing, because most of the pro guys I've seen using these, like I went to see Opeth last year and they ran the Synergy stuff but in racks.
Right.
And it seems like a lot of these touring guys are doing that. And I think this was more making sure that they provided everything.
Yeah.
Because where I see the most value in this stuff is like the SYN1, the desktop unit, or the rack. You can get a 2U rack thing. That's where I see the benefit, because the outlay is much smaller for that. You can still run it into the loop of the amp that you may have before. It's got the cab sim, it's got power sagging, it's got all the other stuff.
There you are, ladies and gentlemen. That has been our lowdown rundown of Synergy amps. Sorry we didn't take you through every single module there was.
Quite a few.
But I do think that would be cool maybe if Synergy would do that themselves on their own channel. Maybe they already have. Lack of research was always one of the strong points of this channel. So final jam. Rabea's staying with his Metropoulos, the Friedman HBE, and I have got the Dumble. Well, no, it's not a Dumble, sorry, it's called an OS, which potentially might be Overdrive Special, which potentially might be a Dumble, but of course isn't official, so don't sue me. But it is only £350 to get this, not £80,000. So
is that how much they cost?
What, proper Dumbles?
Yeah,
can be.
80 grand.
Yeah.
Bloody hell.
Yeah, it's expensive, man. So what we're doing this final jam, Rabea and I'll just noodle out, and some of the jam you'll hear will be the microphones on the cabs, and some of the jam will be the cabinet emulated outputs of both amplifiers. We did, naughty Synergy, realise right at the last minute that it's actually only the 30 watt head that's got this option of a silent output. There doesn't appear to be any way to get the emulated output of the bigger head to work unless you've actually got, you know, the amp running through the cab as well. If we've got that wrong, Synergy, please comment below as to which button we couldn't work out what to press.
Yeah, we couldn't see it on here,
but there wasn't an obvious way to do it. So yeah, this is...
that does make the SYN30 a real strong contender.
It does indeed. Right.
All right.
Let's do this.
1, 2, 3. Yes.
Maybe. Shh.
So anyway,